I want to talk about people who, if you're having a hard time, look at you and say, you've got victim consciousness. Poor me. I do understand where they're coming from. But would you say that someone who is a mixed martial artist, who was in a prize fight and lost, and, was interviewed after the fight, and they said, well, I lost. Would you be Yoda and said, well, you were trying and you didn't do? I mean, you got a prize fight, two people fighting, unless it's going to be called a draw, it never seems to happen. One person is going to emerge the winner, and one person is going to be the loser. So, are you saying the loser lost because the loser had victim consciousness? I took one seminar with someone who was talking about one of these mixed martial artists and going on and on about how it was the mentality of this person that he would always win. But no. It wasn't that long after the seminar when this particular mixed martial artist, I don't remember the name, maybe you know the name, but he was very famous for, having this power of mind. He lost. So even if someone who had apparently no victim mentality can lose, then there's some flaw in this idea that all failures can be rooted in victim consciousness. And I also, being a personal support worker, working with people who have got disabilities, if you were to call these people, they're in their particular straits because they've got victim consciousness, I mean, that's what people do. They say, you don't have a good enough job, it's you. Your victim consciousness means why you didn't get the job. And Louise Hay, she says all diseases are rooted in emotional problems. So as a PSW, I'm going to follow Louise Hay and look at everyone and say, you've all got emotional problems and that's why you're sick. There's huge flaws in these so-called metaphysical theories, these so-called psychological theories. They are not real to life. I've had enough experience on this planet to tell you you can kick these people in the teeth that teach these things, because they are not... I don't know. It's an incredibly arrogant attitude that these so-called spiritual teachers are teaching people. It's pure arrogance to say that, your particular situation is because you've got something wrong with your consciousness and you brought upon yourself these diseases because you've got some kind of belief or something in your consciousness that is outpicturing as your circumstances. These people that teach this are incredibly arrogant. They're incredibly stupid, and they do incredible damage. Incredible damages to fragile people. Because I don't find it empowering what Louise Hay says. I've looked at this kind of stuff. Does it heal anybody? No, it doesn't. Affirmations, do they heal you? No, they don't. Words do not heal. And, it's incredibly arrogant. It's arrogance that they say that this is, the path. And so many teachers of so many different schools of philosophy and thought, metaphysics, they're wrong. They're wrong, and they're all got the same issue. It's, somehow if you're not using my system and it's not working for you, it's your fault. If you're using a system and it's not working, this system doesn't work. That's logic. Now, what else did I want to talk about? What do you do if you have not found a system that works? Well, what I do is I put all the systems that don't work aside, and I keep going. I keep questing for something that is going to work. And, I do sometimes refer back to some of these old teachings to see if there's anything in there that can be used. And I often feel like Don Juan Matus, who was a shaman teacher to Carlos Castaneda, and he called a lot of these kind of things not doings. A not doing is basically, well, it's a not doing. So, you're playing, or you're reading books, or you're just, flibber-gibbeting around. You're spending time preoccupied with something that is not really accomplishing anything. I don't even know maybe if you went for a walk and you sat down, you took out your carving knife and you were, whittling a stick or something. And then at the end of the time, when you finished whittling or taking all the bark off the stick and carving a couple of notches in the stick, then you threw it into the bush. You didn't want the stick. It was just something to do to pass the time. So a not doing. And that's what I feel like a lot of these metaphysical things are. I think the fact is that I've spent so much time researching these things and finding their flaws. So maybe I keep these books around of some of these teachings so that I can tell you lot what my experience is with them and what their flaws are. So, if there's any good that comes out of it is when people tell me, call on Archangel Michael or something, I can say, look, I've called on angels and it doesn't work. I can't tell you how many different books I've read over the years and different things to try and do, what they say it's going to do. And they don't work. So is it my victim consciousness? No. Am I a loser? Well, I have come up across things that I cannot beat. And as a personal support worker, I know plenty of other people who have come across things, their circumstances with their health, that they cannot beat. And many of them have, died because of their disease. So, do I consider them victim consciousness? No. No, I don't. So, people tell you that, it's incredibly arrogant and it's ego of the people that are telling you this. So, that's all I'm going to say about that. If somebody else tells me victim consciousness, I get very angry. I was going to put on I have a shirt that says it's about my attitude. My attitude is, if you're going to attack people for their circumstances, then, you're going to get chewed out by me. And the thing is that these people that I chew out, I end up chewing them out multiple times and it doesn't seem to stick. Somehow, their intellectual capacity is limited and they don't. Is it my communication? I think it's frustration. And people take their frustration out on whatever. And when they're in that state of mind, they are not really listening to learn. They're basically venting. So, what about my lecture yesterday about exiting the matrix via Ho'oponopono? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. God knows I did Ho'oponopono for years. It didn't work. So I'm still looking for things that work. And one of the precepts of shamanism is effectiveness is the measure of truth. So if something is not effective, it's not true. And I actually told my Hawaiian teacher that today, because that was one of his teachings. Effectiveness is the measure of truth. And he told me a bunch of Hawaiian stuff that I've tried and doesn't work. So I gave him that back. And I said to him, effective is the measure of truth, as you teach. And, this is all the same stuff you told me before. It doesn't work. So it's not true for me. And I've looked at many different systems. Has anything worked for me? The only system that works for me is an Osho system. And that system is moment to moment. And perhaps another one of his teachings is if you keep something written down, a card that says this on it, this too will pass. And look at it when something challenging comes up that you don't have any other way out of it. But being moment to moment, and if you're going through some tough times, I feel for you. I feel for you. I don't have some magical bullet. As I said, calling on angels doesn't work. Calling on, praying to Jesus as God doesn't work. What works? Be moment to moment. Try and exit the situation. Go for a walk. Leave the conflict away. Try and be quiet for a little while. Take deep breaths. A lot of times it doesn't heal the situation, but it gets you past it. So, at least you're not under the assault of someone screaming at you that you're in victim consciousness and it's all your fault that you lost the mixed martial artist championship. That's all I got for this lecture.